You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, and this is News with the Eye of Faith. I had my podcast get to the point. I kept adding some news items, and today the news just got so long, I decided to do it as a separate podcast. And so this is not a religious one per se, but it's news from the perspective of Jesus Christ and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Although, as always, I speak for myself. Do I look like I'm a general authority? So, Kamala Harris has been the presumptive nominee for the Democrats, the vice president of a vice president, and she's chosen her vice president, so this is the third-generation vice president. I'm just grateful we have a system that's orderly, where we can choose this and the people choose. Yes, there's some questions, but what happens during conventions is the winners can release delegates, and so President Joe Biden has released his delegates to the vice president, but this is an orderly system. Compared to the type of stuff you read in fantasy novels or if you studied history, this is very different. And even though I'm not endorsing her and I won't vote for her, you have to be grateful for the system. Item 2. I get a prop. 53% of the people think that the First Amendment goes too far. Someone thinks the First Amendment goes too far. Now, remember in General Conference when President Oaks talked about the Constitution? You see what he was talking about? Now, keep in mind, when you talk about the First Amendment, it does not include fraud, deceit, harassment, slander, libel. Those are not covered under the First Amendment. Hate speech, we already have a category of malice, so it was an unnecessary thing to add into the law, but 53% of your fellow citizens think me doing something like this on a podcast is wrong, that I'm going too far. It kind of reminds me of Rush Limbaugh once said that when he started his show that some people thought what he was doing was illegal. So just keep that in mind, what your friends do and why President Oaks talked about the Constitution. So in the Star Valley, Wyoming temple, the statue of Angel Moroni was hit by lightning in the back. And so what we did is we just replaced it. Although I wonder if this may be the reason why they're building temples without the Angel Moronis on it, or because it says it's easier to replace, or if we're just building so many temples we can't keep up with the demand. That's why they're building these prefabricated modular temples now and eliminating the cornerstone ceremony. We're just building so many. It's, I think in the church news, they said around 350 temples. I remember back slightly after college that hitting 100 temples was a big goal. Now we're at 350. So, yes, regardless of what you see in some of the church critical podcasts, and I use the expression church critical for anti-Mormon because the expression anti-Mormon perpetuates the incorrect name of the church. No, we're not going backwards. Now, the Deseret News had this interesting article. This is 8/6/2024, and it's titled, "What Surprised a British Journalist After Spending Time with Latter-day Saints?" And she had these 6 points. Latter-day Saints are simpler and lead simpler and less controversial lives than the media outlets portray. We have a sincere love for Jesus Christ. We have a community of welcoming, of meaningful diversity. Just look at all the General Authority 70s. Valuing big families and traditional marriage doesn't require judging others harshly. Point 5, we are a nurturing community. Point 6, behavioral boundaries, not dissimilar to those many communities have. Every community has boundaries. There's always behavioral boundaries. Behavioral boundaries are just essential. Just don't let people do whatever they want to do. There are boundaries. Every relationships have boundaries. Your girlfriend or wife has all these boundaries. Whether she tells you about them or not, they're there. Point VII, genuine commitment born from individual experiences of God's goodness. And the last one, socialized in a certain direction like all communities do. This is the brainwashing argument that we're brainwashing people. Every organization does this. Yeshiva, No, that's not what C.S. Letter said. The C.S. Letter says we ostracize and brainwash people. Yeah, okay. The church wants people barefoot, wants women barefoot, pregnant, and chained to the stove, even though from day one, Brigham Young University Provo was coeducational. Okay, one screen, two movies, denialism. Next one is BYU Magazine had an article on interfaith dialogue. Now, of course, it's a place of a university to have guest lecturers and interfaith dialogue. Remember once we had a rabbi, who's the one who wrote, the rabbi who wrote When Bad Things Happen to Good People. He spoke to us, and yeah, it's the point of a university to study stuff where it's not a seminary class or a Sunday school, but it's a university where you're supposed to listen to people. But there's a danger it can be understood in interfaith dialogue can be understood in a bad way. Andrew Reed, who spearheads this, said, Reed says interfaith interactions can be transforming for the Latter-day Saint students. Quote, they begin to recognize that we're not the only set of people searching for God. They begin to recognize that we're not the only set of people searching for God. Searching for God. Don't you have a testimony? Here's two more quotes from Emma K. Bowman, BYU class of 2025. An interfaith leadership class teaching assistant, McKay Bowman, I don't know if it's a male or female, to love others as a disciple of Christ, he says, I need to take learning from them seriously. And here's another quote. If I can learn to sit with someone who sees the world radically different than if I can learn to sit with someone who sees the world radically different than me and be patient and learn from them, explains Reed, that's where I think growth happens. Well, that's good, but which way is your head facing? Now here's some doctrinal perspectives on interfaith dialogue. Now, it says, section 43, you're not sent forth to taught, but to teach the children of men the things which I have put in your hands by the power of my Spirit, and you're to be taught from on high. Taught from on high. We're to teach and not be taught. But with some I am not well pleased, for they'll not open their mouths, but they hide the talent which I have given unto them. Woe unto such, for mine anger is kindled against them. Section 60, verse 2. Section 112, contend thou, therefore, morning by morning, and day after day. Let thy warning voice go forth. When the night cometh, let not the inhabitants of the earth slumber because of thy speech. So some of that's, you understand, a little bit hyperbolic. But we have a message, they have a message, and we have a message. Dialogue isn't just one person sitting down and shutting up. It's both people talking. Come now, let us reason together, as Isaiah said. Now, this may come from a bit of an understanding or a misimpression of something that Elder Quentin L. Cook said 6th of June, 2019. It is a time to listen to one another, and it is a time to listen to one another and learn from one another. Now, you notice how what Elder Cook is emphasizing, this is an interactive. It's not, okay, the Latter-day Saints need to be quiet and listen, but we're both talking to each other. Because our message is as valid as everyone else's message. It's a two-way street. And remember, there's, like I said, this is a university setting. This isn't, it's an academic setting as opposed to a missionary setting. You have the way a missionary, full-time missionary works is what these scriptures refer to. Then you have a member missionary. And you just have a member in general, a sort of a indirect member missionary, although we're all member missionaries. You know, there's a degree of what a full-time missionary does and what a member does. So, yeah, make sure your head's facing the right direction and don't deprecate or disdain the message that you have in order to learn from another person. No self-hatred, I guess is what I'm saying. So the last news item is 6 in the news. Utah bans 13 books, and 13 kind of coincidental number, but it's Chicken Little, The Sky is Falling. So is this censorship, or do you want elementary school children to show up to drag queen story time and they're reading 50 Shades of Grey? You say this is censorship. My response is children should not be reading porn. Children should not be sexualized. Let me play a message, and this is from the it's called A Message from the Gay Community, and it's from the San Francisco Gay Men's Chorus. And let me turn that up. This is just crying out for technical problems. So this is from 2021, and let me just play it right here.
As we celebrate Pride on the progress we've made over these past years, there's still work to be done. So to those of you out there who are still working against equal rights, we have a message for you. You think we're sinful? You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep them from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children, we'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting.
It kind of speaks for itself. Gay Men's Chorus. I've never been able to finish watching that. It just sickens me. Now, everyone has their rights. I always answer with a free market solution. If there's drag queen story time going on, that it's not mandatory, there's parental consent, there's parental supervision, and there's equal access. Not mandatory, parental consent, parental supervision, and equal access. So if I want to get up there and share the Book of Mormon, I hope that there's equal access. And that's news with the eyes of faith.